Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we pull the most vital knowledge from a dense stack of sources and deliver the insights straight to you.
And today, we're stepping away from the news cycle a bit.
We are. We're going deep into, well, the most intimate battlefield there is. Personal philosophy and self-mastery.
It's all about how we build a life.
Exactly. We're exploring how we can make conscious choices in a world that feels like it's built on, distraction and compulsion. How do you build a life of purpose, not just reaction? And our sources today, they frame this whole thing around this beautiful and really provocative idea.
I love this framing.
It's that the seven wonders of the world, they aren't some monuments you have to travel to see.
Right.
They're experiences that are available right now, right here.
They are.
To see, to hear, to touch, to taste, to feel.
To laugh and to love.
And when you just think about those seven things, it instantly shifts the goalpost, doesn't it? From what you achieve to what you appreciate.
It absolutely does. And that's, I think, the perfect foundation for our mission in this deep dive. We're here to understand this central premise from Stoicism and other practical philosophies.
Which is?
That life is profoundly less about the external stuff.
Yeah.
What happens to us. And, well, almost entirely about how we respond to it.
The architecture of response. That's what the sources call it.
That's it. It's the blueprint for your character.
Okay, so let's unpack that architecture. Because for a lot of people, I think when life hits hard, separating the event from the response, that feels almost impossible.
It does. It feels like one and the same.
Yeah. The core Stoic idea is that events, they just arrive. They're bare, neutral facts. A person loses their job. A man goes to prison. That's just the objective reality.
Right.
But the second we add a label, calling it a tragedy or an opportunity or some unjust suffering, that description, that's pure interpretation.
And it's a choice. Fundamentally, it's a choice. It sounds deceptively simple, but it is maybe the hardest thing in the world to actually practice.
Because that immediate emotional reaction is so powerful.
It's natural.
Yeah.
But the philosophical work, it starts the second after that impact. It's about separating the facts, like I am financially insecure, from the interpretation, which is I am a failure.
And that second part, the interpretation, that's the only part we actually control.
Exactly.
But hold on. Isn't that an incredibly high bar? I mean, are the sources suggesting we should thank the universe for hardship? When something genuinely awful happens, doesn't it sound a bit glib to say the event is neutral?
That's a really important distinction to make. And no, the sources are absolutely not saying deny your pain. They're not saying don't feel emotion.
Okay.
They're saying the event itself lacks inherent moral value. A fire just is. The suffering it causes is very real. But the moral opportunity that the fire presents, the chance to show courage or generosity or resilience, that's where the choice is.
I see. So the event is the raw material and the virtue is what you build with it.
Precisely. And we see this so clearly in the example of Malcolm X.
Yeah.
He went into prison as Malcolm Little, a criminal with, very little education. The external facts were absolutely confining. I mean, bars, walls, and a total loss of freedom.
And yet he comes out this educated, disciplined, motivated leader. The architecture held up, even inside the ultimate confinement.
It did. He chose to see that confinement not as the end of his potential, but as a clearing.
A clearing, what a word for it.
Yeah, a space that was emptied of all distractions, where he had the time and the focus to completely rebuild his intellectual and moral foundation.
Yeah.
The event was the same for him as for hundreds of other inmates. His relationship to it is what changed everything.
So the goal is to accept the reality, no matter how painful it is. So you can start the work of deciding who you're going to be inside of it.
That's it. And that active self-construction.
Yes.
That's what the Stoics loved. They didn't celebrate plagues or betrayals. They celebrated what those horrible events demanded of them.
The opportunity for virtue.
The opportunity for virtue. They loved the chance to be steadfast and decent and kind, precisely when everything was tempting them to be bitter or to just panic.
Our sources bring that idea right down to earth with a great example about coaching.
Oh, yeah.
The test of a great coach isn't inspiring the star player who loves to practice.
Of course not. That's easy.
The real measure of character is learning to love that last group of the day, the one you have no energy for, or that difficult colleague who tests your patience. The architecture is built when you choose patience over resentment, especially when it isn't easy or rewarded.
That friction is where the work gets done.
Okay, so if the internal response is our primary power source, what's the next line of defense against all the chaos from the outside world?
Well, that leads us right to the concept of the inner citadel, which was a big idea for Marcus Aurelius.
The inner citadel.
Yeah. Once you master your internal response, you then have to build defenses to protect it. Defenses against chaotic events, but also just the opinions of other people. And this kind of measured reserve, it was a hallmark of figures like Cato and Marcus Aurelius. They were warm with close friends, but they kept a clear, self-contained distance from strangers and the public. They knew you need a fortress of conviction.
And that idea of boundaries feels so desperately needed right now.
Oh, it is.
We're living in what the sources call an epidemic of poor boundaries, and it's just fueled by social media. It's a constant assault from, gossips, trolls, and these energy vampires.
And the citadel is what protects your most limited resources.
Yeah.
Your attention and your energy.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where philosophy becomes so practical.
How so?
It helps you understand your own path and your purpose so clearly that other people's opinions, they just lose their power. They can't get through the walls.
It's like an armor that's forged from self-knowledge. There's a Greek line from Dr. Jennifer Baker about this. She says, philosophy makes you tough enough to withstand anything they say about you because you've already come to appreciate what you're here for.
That's so good. But, and this is a huge but, that defensive strength depends completely on having clear sight.
Okay, what do they mean by clear sight?
You can't defend the citadel if you have blind spots about what the real threats are. And this brings us to the really painful example of Seneca and Nero.
Yes. Seneca was Nero's hugely influential advisor.
Immensely influential. But he had this massive blind spot. He really thought he could teach or contain or somehow control Nero, even while other people, like Thrasea and Agrippinus, they saw the tyranny immediately.
And why couldn't Seneca see it?
Why do you think? He was paid a fortune. He had enormous status and power as Nero's confidant. His entire prestige depended on Nero being a malleable student, not a monster.
It's that Upton Sinclair line, isn't it?
It is. It's very hard to get someone to see something that their salary or status depends on them not seeing.
Wow. That's a staggering thought, because it's not just about power, it's about not wanting to admit your entire foundation is flawed. That you have to make a choice that's going to cost you.
Absolutely. The status creates the self-deception. It is so much easier to believe the tyrant is misunderstood than to admit you are serving a tyrant.
So clear sight has to conquer convenience.
It has to. Because convenience, more often than not, leads to moral corruption.
Okay. So we have the internal response, the architecture, and the external defense, the citadel. Now, let's talk about the daily work, the discipline of practice. And that starts with memory.
It does. Our sources bring up Emerson, who had this great piece of advice. He said, finish each day and be done with it. Forget blunders and absurdities as soon as you can.
Which is the exact opposite of what most of us do.
Right. We keep this running inventory of our failures, the embarrassing moments, the insults, and we just replay them over and over.
It's a highlight reel of our worst moments.
Yeah. And the sources call the alternative strategic memory. It's not amnesia. It's a conscious choice of what you rehearse in your mind.
I think I know the quote you're talking about.
Mary Carolyn Davies. She wrote that prayer. May I forget what ought to be forgotten and recall, unfailing, all that ought to be recalled, each kindly thing, forgetting what might sting.
What we rehearse, we reinforce.
That's the whole thing. If you constantly rehearse your failures, you build a life on a foundation of regret. The choice of what to remember is the choice of who you become tomorrow.
And this strategic choice, it also applies to our intellectual lives, doesn't it? This temptation to confuse what's impressive with what's actually important.
Oh, absolutely. There's a classic story about Epictetus that our sources highlight.
The one with the student?
Yeah. The student comes up to him all puffed up, bragging because he'd managed to get through this incredibly dense, difficult, and frankly badly written text by the philosopher Chrysippus.
He was showing off his intellectual suffering.
Totally. And Epictetus, who is all about practical, lived philosophy, just gives him this perfect, dry comeback. He says, if Chrysippus was a better writer, you'd have less to brag about.
Ha! That just cuts right through all the ego.
It does. Because the goal isn't demonstration, it's transformation. Life is too short to be consumed by things that just look impressive on a shelf, but don't actually change who you are.
The real work happens in the ordinary challenges.
Exactly. Our sources really emphasize this. The test is applying philosophy to things like changing a bullying culture at work, or getting your neighbors to come to a block party, or just helping a new kid feel welcome at school.
That's where character is forged.
That's where it's forged.
Yeah.
It's an athletic mindset. Fundamentals are never really mastered. They're just practiced endlessly.
Coach Chip Conrad has that line, practice makes permanent.
Not perfect, Permanent. We are literally making ourselves slaves to good habits through rhythmic repetition. It's not about dramatic one-off efforts.
And this connects so well to the physical analogies from trainers like Tommy Kono and Lauren Landau.
Yeah.
They say real power doesn't come from the showy muscles, right? It comes from the core, the hips, the lats. Your posture is everything.
And it's the exact same principle for character. Your power comes from your core disciplines, the foundational postures you hold every single day, like honesty or kindness. If the core habits are weak, no amount of flashy heroism is going to make up for it.
Which brings us to this wonderful paradox that frees us from having to be perfect.
Only the mediocre are always at their best.
Right. If you're always performing at what you think your ceiling is, you're not growing.
Not at all. Growth requires struggle. It requires inconsistency and failure and that messy process of pushing past what you already know.
So if we bring this all together, the core lesson is that character is revealed in action, not just good intentions.
Right. Henry Ford said it best, you can't build a reputation on what you were going to do.
It's built on what you've done. And Benjamin Franklin gave us the positive version. If you would be loved, love, and be lovable, it's all about the practice.
And it all comes back to this very moment. Mother Teresa reminds us, be happy in the moment, that's enough. This moment is all we have. The event is neutral. We add the meaning.
And those 7 wonders, to see, hear, touch, taste, feel, laugh, and love, they don't require a pilgrimage.
Just presence.
And they don't require an admission fee.
Just attention. They're available to you right now.
The choice, as it always is, remains yours. The sources draw on Cervantes. The true test isn't whether we fall, but whether we choose to rise.
Unless we really want to stay in bed.
We choose if our circumstance becomes our prison or our education. So the question for you to think about today is this. Tomorrow is a new day. Are you going to begin it serenely and with too high a spirit to be encumbered with all your old nonsense?